Today we're going to install grippers on Baxter. And the first gripper we're going to install is the vacuum gripper. The first step in installing the vacuum gripper is installing the valves. What you'll need from the starter kit are the instructions. You'll need the two valves. This one is a 2-connection valve, and this provides the pressure for the vacuum generator. And the other one is a 1-connection valve, which provides the blow-off. In addition, you'll need the screws for the valve. These are M3 25 millimeter. You'll need 2 foam gaskets, and you'll need a 6 millimeter hose that goes up Baxter's arm. We also supply a 2.5 millimeter wrench in the starter kit, and you'll need to provide a cutter of some sort, either scissors or some kind of a wire cutter. And also in the starter kit are some cable ties that will hold the hose that goes up Baxter's arm. Let's get started. Okay, the first step is removing the lower panel, and there are 2 thumb screws that you'll remove, and then the panel comes right off. We'll set this aside because we're going to be putting that back on. You'll notice that there's a cable that will be connecting to the valves, and the 2 hoses for each arm are coming in here. And you want to make sure that before you attach your 80 psi to Baxter in the back, that you do this step, you connect the valves. So we're going to start by taking off these caps. We simply press in the ring and pull the cap off like that. And if you had already connected your 80 psi, it would be gushing out right now. Then we can take our cutter, and holding on to the hoses so they don't slip in behind this panel, we'll cut off this little cable tie. And now we'll connect our valves. The blow-off valve will always go towards the center of Baxter, even on the other side. And then the pressure valve for the vacuum generator will go right here on the outside in both locations. Right now we're doing just Baxter's right arm. And before you screw these in, it's easier if you connect the electrical, make the electrical connections. So referring to this page on the instructions, you'll see that you're going to be using R because we're working with the right arm. So if you find R blow off and R vac off and R vac on, those are the 3 cables we'll need. Okay, so let's go ahead and connect our blow to the blow-off valve at the bottom, like so. And let's connect, and this is where you might make a mistake, but if you look at the instructions, it's labeled clearly. RVAC on is going to be on the bottom of the valve. And by the bottom, I mean there's a little indicator here stamped into the valve. I don't know if you can see it, but it's also indicated in the instructions. There's an A on the bottom of both valves, and there's a B on the top of both valves. And you want to make sure you put them in that orientation. Also the plugs, you'll notice that there's a plug missing on the bottom of the pressure valve. So that should be on the bottom. And then the last cable to connect is RVAC off, and that goes on the top of the valve. And you'll notice the red light comes on right away, indicating that the pressure is off. Okay, so now we're ready to mount these valves on Baxter's mounting plate. Simply push them in tight to the plate, line them up, and use the M3 25 millimeter screws. Line these up, and use your 2.5 millimeter wrench supplied in the vacuum kit. Just get those hand tight for now. There are 4 screws provided, 2 for each valve. So now just make sure that the wires are routed so that they're not going to interfere and they're not pinched behind the valves. And you can take the remaining wires, which will go for the other valves if you decide to put a vacuum gripper on the other arm, tuck those into the base. And basically now we're ready to put the cover back on. Before we can do that, we have to remove these two plugs. Okay, and so right now actually we only have to remove one plug because we're just putting in the right arm valves. So if you squeeze the tabs on this knockout on the panel, it'll push out easily and you can put it right in there. Before we do that, take one of those foam gaskets and just set it over the connections on the valve, and that'll make a better seal in terms of keeping dust outside of Baxter. And that's how the cover goes on. And we'll just put in the thumb screws and the other one. And there you have the valve installation. Now we're going to run the 6mm hose up Baxter's right arm, but before we can do that, we have to install the 4 cable ties. So let's start with the wrist, and there are 4 of these connectors on Baxter's underarm. So you're simply going to thread the cable tie in and make a large loop and leave it, something like that. We'll take another cable tie and put it under the forearm and make a large loop. Okay, the next one is under the shoulder. Make a large loop. Leave it. And the last one is here at the base. And we'll go ahead and pop that one in. Make a large loop. And now with the cutter, you can go and cut each one of these off flush. Now let's take the 6mm hose from the gripper kit, put it in the one opening here on the pressure valve, and then with the other end, we'll come up along the arm through the loops and leave most of the slack down here at the base of Baxter. There'll also be a ground strap at some point that will come through these loops, and if you find that you ever want to make them a little tighter, you can do that as well. But this should be good for now. At the 80 psi pressure input in the back of Baxter, you'll find this 1/4-inch hose adapter. If you're using a 1/4-inch hose, just plug it right into here. If not, remove this adapter and plug in your 6mm hose.